Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Friday, March 13th. We made it to the end of the Sovereign Week. Right now, you are probably blaming your boss, the economy, or your ex for why you are stressed out. You think that if the world would just behave exactly the way you want it to, you would finally have peace. That is the mindset of a slave. You cannot control the external world, but the second you let those outside forces dictate your internal state, you have given away all of your power. Today, we are reading the ultimate manual for building an untouchable mind, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of Rome, dealing with wars and betrayals, and he wrote this book just to keep his own emotions disciplined. When I am running NexYear and a massive logistics operation falls apart, getting emotional does not fix the supply chain. I do not sit around and complain about the vendors. I hold my frame, I fix the system, and I keep moving. A sovereign takes absolute ownership. Let's close out the week.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Antonio Montana.
My name is Patrick Payne.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
Welcome back to the Short Game. This is episode 25. We are officially ending off the Sovereign Week. The entire theme of this week was command, reality, and the crown. Today we are going to tackle a concept that separates the absolute winners from the permanent losers. I want to talk about something that drives me absolutely insane. I see it every single day in the real world. I see it in guys who claim they want to be elite. I see it in athletes, in college students, in corporate employees, and especially in founders. You let absolute clowns dictate your reality. You wake up, you have a massive goal, and you have your entire day planned out to the minute. You are feeling good, your mindset is locked in, and you are ready to execute. Then you get in your car to drive to the gym or the office. Some absolute idiot cuts you off in traffic. Or maybe you stop for coffee and you get a slow barista who messes up your order. What do most of you do in that exact moment? You completely lose your mind. You lay on the horn, your blood pressure spikes, your face gets hot, and you carry that toxic anger all the way to your destination. Suddenly, your entire morning is ruined. You walk into your first meeting, radiating negative energy. Do you realize how incredibly weak that behavior is? You are handing over the keys to your emotional state to someone you do not even know. You are letting an incompetent person dictate your mood and destroy your focus. When you do that, you are giving away your power to a clown. It is the exact definition of weak, pathetic behavior. If someone else can make you angry, someone else owns you. They own your mind. They own your focus. You are a spectator in your own life, sitting in the bleachers while random strangers play games with your nervous system. Today, we are going to fix that immediately. We are going to talk about building your internal empire. You can conquer the whole damn world. You can make millions of dollars. But if you let bad drivers, incompetent coworkers, and stupid people ruin your internal peace, you are still a slave. The ultimate tycoon controls his own mind. You cannot always control what happens to you in this life, but you maintain absolute authority over how you respond. To understand this framework, we have to go back in time. We are not talking about some modern self-help gurus selling courses. We are not talking about fragile therapy speak. I absolutely hate therapy speak. We are going to look at the ultimate operator. I am talking about Marcus Aurelius. We are diving deep into his private journal, which we now call Meditations. Let me paint a picture of who this guy actually was. Marcus Aurelius was the Roman emperor. He was quite literally the most powerful man on the face of the earth. This was back around the year 161. He did not just sit in a marble palace, eating grapes and giving orders. His reign was an absolute nightmare of logistics, warfare, and constant crisis. The Parthian Empire was attacking the Romans in the east. The brutal Germanic tribes were invading the borders from the north. He spent years commanding military campaigns on the frozen banks of the Danube. He was out there fighting in the mud, the blood, and the freezing cold. While he was out there holding the line, a massive plague was ravaging Italy. People were dying by the thousands every single day. Famines were sweeping across the land, starving his citizens. And to top it all off, one of his most trusted generals, a guy named Avidius Cassius, betrayed him. This general started a revolt in Syria and tried to steal the entire empire for himself. Think about the monumental stress of that reality. Think about the crushing weight of the world on this guy's shoulders. He had every excuse in the book to lose his mind, to become a paranoid tyrant, and to lash out at everyone around him. But he did not. He sat down in his military tent, right in the middle of a literal war zone, and he wrote. He did not write this book to be published. He did not care about becoming a famous author. He wrote meditations purely as a manual to control himself. It was his own personal operating system to maintain his internal empire. He wrote these thoughts to keep his mind sharp and his frame absolutely solid, and the core of his philosophy, the heart of the Stoic discipline, is brutally simple. External events have absolutely no power over you unless you give them permission to hurt you. Let me repeat that so it sinks in. External events cannot touch your mind. Listen to what he actually says in the book. He writes, "Do not suppose you are hurt, and your complaint ceases." He follows that by saying, "Cease your complaint, and you are not hurt." It sounds almost too simple to be true, right? But it is the most profound psychological weapon you will ever discover. He also states that it is our own opinion that gives being to misfortune. He says, "Do not fancy yourself hurt, and nothing can touch you. Your mind is an impenetrable citadel. It is a fortress that cannot be breached unless you voluntarily open the gates and let the enemy inside." Marcus Aurelius knew that he was going to deal with complete idiots every single day. He actually prepared himself for it mentally every single morning before he got out of bed. He wrote a specific reminder to himself to set his expectations. He wrote, "Remember to put yourself in mind every morning that before night it will be your luck to meet with some busybody." He expected to meet with some ungrateful, abusive fellow, with some knavish, envious, or unsociable churl. He expected people to be incompetent and annoying. He knew that all this perverseness in them proceeds from their ignorance of good and evil. When you expect the world to be full of flawed, stupid people, you stop being shocked when they act exactly like flawed, stupid people. You stop letting their predictable behavior hijack your nervous system. You look at them the same way you would look at a barking dog or a sudden rainstorm. You do not get furiously mad at the rain. You just put on a jacket and keep walking. Marcus Aurelius clearly states, the best way of revenge is not to imitate the injury. If someone acts like a fool, the absolute worst thing you can do is lower your own standard and act like a fool in return. That is letting them win the interaction. That is surrendering your personal sovereignty to a peasant. He says, "Toss me into what climate or state you please." He continues, "For all that, I will keep my divine part content, if it but exist and act in accordance with its nature." That is the unbreakable mindset of a true king. He understood on a molecular level that life is a constant, unstoppable flow of chaos. He wrote about how everything material quickly disappears into the universal matter. He understood that time is like a rapid river and a rushing torrent of all that comes and passes. When you adopt that massive historical perspective, the little daily annoyances of life just melt away into nothing. Why would you waste your precious energy screaming at a bad driver when you realize how incredibly short your life actually is? Why would you let a slow barista ruin your day when you understand that in 100 years, nobody will even remember that you existed? Marcus Aurelius directly asks himself, what is it that troubles you? He asks, is it the wickedness of the world? If it is, he says, you just need to realize that people misbehave themselves against their will. They are victims of their own ignorance and lack of discipline. You are the one with the actual power in the dynamic. You have the unique ability to observe their behavior, assess it logically, and decide that it will not penetrate your mental armor. He points out a biological fact, saying that outward objects cannot take hold of the soul. They cannot force their passage into her, nor set any of her wheels going. The impression of anger or fear comes entirely from yourself. It is your own internal motions that affect you. This philosophy demands absolute, uncompromising accountability. You cannot blame your boss for your bad mood. You cannot blame your partner for your lack of focus. You cannot blame the economy for your anxiety. If you are angry today, it is simply because you chose to be angry. If you are frustrated right now, it is because you voluntarily allowed frustration to take root in your mind. Marcus says that your mind is invincible when she turns to herself and relies upon her own courage. He writes that a soul unembarrassed with passion is a very citadel. It is the most impregnable security for man in future. This book is the ultimate playbook for anyone trying to build something great in this world. If you are a founder trying to scale a company, you are going to face brutal resistance. If you are an athlete trying to win a championship, you are going to face injuries and bad calls. If you are just a guy trying to get his life together, you are going to face betrayal and monumental screw-ups. If you let every single one of those external events dictate your emotional state, you will never reach the finish line. You will burn out completely. You will make highly emotional, terrible decisions. You will alienate your team and your friends. You absolutely must build this internal empire first. You must aggressively detach your emotional reaction from the external event. Marcus Aurelius had to deal with the terrifying threat of the Parthians and the Germans destroying his civilization. He had to deal with a literal plague wiping out his population. He had to deal with his own trusted general trying to stab him in the back. And his response to all of that chaos was to withdraw into the quiet of his own mind. He teaches us to consciously rub out the colors of imagination. He commands us, do not suffer your passions to make a puppet of you. Think deeply about that exact phrase. Make a puppet of you. When you lose your temper, you are dancing on someone else's strings. The guy who cut you off in traffic pulled a string, and you danced for him. The vendor who messed up your order pulled a string, and you danced for them. You have to cut those strings. Stop being a puppet for the rest of the world. Take ruthless command of your own mind. Marcus says, let people's tongues and actions be what they will. My business is to be good. He writes, let people talk and act as they please. I must be an emerald, and I must keep my color. That is the ultimate standard. You are the emerald. The dirt and the mud and the screaming chaos around you cannot change your intrinsic value. They cannot change your color unless you give them permission. When you finally realize that the world is a chaotic place by design, you stop fighting the chaos, and you start managing yourself. He states clearly that the nature of the universe has no evil in its nature. Things just happen in the timeline of the universe. It is only your human judgment that desperately labels them as good or bad. If you can train yourself to remove the judgment, you immediately remove the pain. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending to be a robot. It is about not generating useless, destructive emotions in the first place. It is about seeing reality for exactly what it is. It is just raw data. A bad driver swerving into your lane is just data. A rude coworker talking trash behind your back is just data. You process the data, you decide on the most effective logical action, and you execute. You do not need to add a thick layer of rage or frustration on top of it. That extra layer of emotion is just a massive waste of your energy. And as an operator in this world, energy is your most valuable asset. You need every single ounce of it to build, to compete, and to win. Do not leak your energy on things you cannot control. He says, therefore remove the opinion. And then, as if you had doubled some dangerous cape, you will have nothing but a steady course, a smooth sea, and a waveless bay to receive you. That waveless bay is the internal empire we are talking about. It is the place where no external drama can reach you. Now, let us connect the dots. Let us bring this out of ancient Rome and directly into your reality today. I want to give you a real, unfiltered example from my own life, from building NexYear. This brings us to core value 2, which is the operator reality. At NexYear, we pride ourselves on absolute uncompromising excellence. I have an extreme loyalty to my day one crew, and we are completely obsessed with winning. We do not tolerate laziness, and we do not tolerate excuses. A few months ago, we had a critical custom leather order for a massive VIP client. This was a very high-stakes deal that could make or break a major relationship for the brand. It had to be flawless. And guess what happened? Our vendor completely messed it up. They dropped the ball on the logistics, the specs were entirely wrong, and the delivery timeline was blown to pieces. It was a total logistical disaster. Now, what is the natural human instinct in that exact moment? The instinct is to completely lose your mind. The instinct is to pick up your phone, call the vendor, and scream at them until your voice goes hoarse. The instinct is to let that sheer incompetence ruin your entire week and make you miserable to be around. But you have to remember what we just learned from Marcus Aurelius. Anger is a completely useless emotion for an operator. It does not build anything, and it does not fix anything. I did not get emotional when I heard the news. I did not yell at my team, and I did not scream at the vendor. Why? Because screaming at a vendor does not magically fix the custom leather. It just drains my critical energy and surrenders my emotional control to someone who has already proven that they are incompetent. I looked at the broken system. I saw the reality of the situation without adding my own useless layer of judgment or panic. I fixed the logistics. I held my frame. I made the necessary calls to pivot our supply chain. I communicated with the client, and we kept moving. We solved the problem quickly because I kept my mind in a state of cold calculation, not a state of hot reaction. That is the fundamental difference between a builder and a spectator. When you are an operator in the trenches, you do not have the luxury of throwing emotional tantrums. You have a real job to do. You have a dedicated team relying on your stability. If I let a vendor's mistake break my internal empire, I am no better than the weak guy screaming at the slow barista. This perfectly brings us to core value 3. This is the universal sovereign standard. This applies to every single person listening to this podcast right now. I do not care if you are a college student, a competitive athlete, a mid-level employee, or a startup founder. A king cannot be provoked by peasants. I want you to burn that exact phrase into your brain. A king cannot be provoked by peasants. Whether you are dealing with a bad boss who micromanages you, a difficult client who refuses to pay on time, or a massive traffic jam on your way to an important exam, your emotional control is your ultimate moat. It is your ultimate competitive advantage in a world full of easily triggered people. Most people out there are incredibly fragile. They break and crumble at the very first sign of friction. If you can be the one person in the room who remains perfectly calm while everything is burning down around you, you win. You become completely unstoppable. You become the sovereign ruler of your own reality. You dictate the terms of your life instead of letting life dictate its terms to you. When you let external incompetence bother you, you are voluntarily stepping off your throne and getting down into the mud with the peasants. You are lowering your elite standard to match their pathetic standard. Do not imitate the injury. Do not reflect the chaos of the world. Absorb it, process it, and flawlessly execute your next move. Let us wrap this episode up. Here is your blunt directive for the week. Stop being a spectator to your own emotions. Take your mind back right now. Audit your own emotional triggers today. Watch how many times you desperately want to get mad at something completely stupid. Catch yourself in the act. Hold your frame. Remember that absolutely no one can force you to be angry. They can only offer you an invitation to be angry, and you have the supreme power to decline that invitation. Guard your internal empire. Stay sharp. Keep building. I will see you guys next time on The Short Game.